recording. And so we will share this out afterwards because we're going to probably move a bit quick through things and want you all to be able to see the work we did today, the what I showed you in NotebookLM, and hopefully be able to reference it after the fact. Um, my name is Ryan Peterson. I am the founder of a few things. One thing is called the Brain Studio, thebrainstudio.ai. Make sure you have the on there. There is also a brainstudio.ai. Thebrainstudio.ai and a platform that I've just launched about a month ago called Complear, which is an AI-driven research and evaluation tool for philanthropy and nonprofits to assess the impact of their work, design RFPs, search and activate evidence for the sake of reports, proposals, that sort of thing. So I encourage you to check it out. We just launched it, and so we have what we call founding memberships available at just $100 for a whole year, which is less than the cost to operate it. So if you're interested in that sort of tool, check it out. It's a very rigorous evidence-based tool, and I do demo sessions on it every Friday. I won't be this Friday or next Friday, but mid-April again, I'll start doing those, and I'd be happy to connect with you one-on-one. And then I'm constantly working on different tools to support impact professionals. And you'll find some of that stuff on thebrainstudio.ai. Today, in these sessions, I've been hosting AI working sessions, I like to call them, for about a year, mostly with philanthropy and nonprofit leaders. And a year ago, they were very much organic, raw working session, and we covered way too much in an hour and realized we needed to focus on one thing at a time, such as a specific tool or a specific process. And uh, and one of the tools I discovered early on was something called NotebookLM. And we're going to walk through that today. And it's a really unique tool that's different than Claude or ChatGPT or any of the large scale LLMs because it's more of a closed system. And for those of you who are new to using AI tools, we do a session called AI How To From Literacy to Capacity, which is a very much an intro to what is AI, what are LLMs, what do I need to be thinking about or worried about, and how do I use them well. And then we've done sessions on prompting and prompt engineering. And so we will, right now, our event page is a bit light, but I'll update that in the next couple weeks. We've also done specific sessions on other platforms like Claude and ChatGPT, and we'll likely do one on Copilot sometime soon. And then, so just want you to know if you go to, um, and I'm actually going to decline meeting recording just because we're already recording it, and I'll make sure you guys get it after the fact. So for those who are trying to get their meeting recorders in. But we'll make sure you have the Luma page, which you've already registered through after the fact. And as we update those events, you can see them. So I am going to just pause, see if anybody has any questions. We will get to a point where I will potentially ask for input from the group on use cases or feel free to come off mute to interrupt me and ask a question and then or use the chat, and I'll try to pay attention to the chat while I'm presenting, but sometimes that's a bit difficult. So and I did see who just said that. Pamela said she's zooming in from vacay in Cabo. Thanks for telling us, Pamela. Have fun. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Um, Hopefully you're now seeing uh let's see, what are you seeing? Can I get a thumbs up or a like from somebody if you're seeing Notebook LM now? Make sure. Yep. Okay, great. Um, So this is a Google tool, and I'm in Pro, as you can see right here. So uh, it's something that, especially if you're a Google user, you can access. The landing page for Notebook LM is just notebooklm.google. And then you can just click into try Notebook or Notebook LM, and it's a pretty easy sign up. And to use Pro. There's a couple different plans you can look at. Um, so there's some of the plans, but I'll let you explore what you want to be able to do and how much budget you may have to add this tool to your mix. But it is, I would say, one of my favorite tools, one that I wish I used more often just because I'm all over the place on tools. But I'm going to show you a few examples of things I've done over the last year inside Notebook LM that might spur on some ideas for you to use it in your own context. So you're seeing my homepage, which you can see what I'm thinking about and working on. Uh, and I'm going to show you a few of the sort of primary things I've done. One thing, I'm going to show you a really simple use case on a very complex issue, which was, when the big, beautiful bill was getting passed last year, where everybody's sort of, this sort of happens with, oh, sorry, I'll let some people in. Um, this happens with, whenever legislation's passed, or imagine, some really significant strategic plan rolls out for your organization, or there's just something complex to understand. This is actually a really fantastic tool for helping you get your head around what that is, and only using that specific content as your source. So, what makes Notebook LM really unique is that it does not go to the web like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity to source information. It only uses the sources you give it. So I'm going to click into this one where I was uh, trying to get my head around the big, beautiful bill and its impact on philanthropy from a tax perspective. And so what I did was add this source of the big, beautiful bill and then an analysis of the taxes. And I'm just going to show you, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, so I hope you can, but it can develop an audio overview. They used to call it a podcast because it sounds like a podcast. Or you can do any one of these things like develop an infographic, a data table based on what's in the big, beautiful bill. So this, in a single click, after I gave it a source, produced a 23-minute description of the tax implications for philanthropy in the Big Beautiful Bill. This center box is also, it'll automatically load with some content based on what source you give it. And you can put up to 50 sources on the left side here. So if you said, okay, I want to, source some state implications, some information relevant to my organization, it's going to take all of the context you give it on the left-hand side, which is super easy to do. It's uploading files. You can even go pull in specific websites just by putting their link in, connect it to your drive, or just copy text in that you maybe have, stream of consciousness or something you maybe copied from someplace you want to add. And then you can set it, it actually says 300 here. Oh, it's because I'm in Pro. But if you're in a lower level subscription, I think it's 50. And then once you do that, it all loads here and you can turn whether it's included or not on and off. And then it'll auto-populate here, some sort of intro to it. And then you can, just like any other LLM, interact with it. So you can say, or you could just click on this, say, how does the House or Senate plans different from the for private foundations? So this must have been actually when it was still running through the system. So it'll prompt some questions for you, or you can interact with it just like LLMs that you're probably used to. And then you can actually add it as a source if you want to. So if you want to say, okay, it produced an output that has value as a source, and I want to not lose that information, you can just kind of take this, copy it, run over the sources, put it in as text, and now you have that output. And the reason you do that is because you can actually clear the chat, which is nice. So it sort of starts over fresh in its thinking. So if I delete that, it'll sort of go back to where it started, which is really nice because if you know in LLMs, like the main ones, if you have your memory turned on, it learns from everything you do. So every subsequent prompt that you would do in Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity takes that previous context and tries to guess at what you might want or how you might be thinking. And so here you can essentially pretty quickly just clear its memory and have it sort of start at zero from that perspective. And let's see, anybody having any questions while we're going here? Um, so I'm gonna just, and hopefully you can hear this, and if you don't, it's probably because I
18th Congress. Now, this bill is incredibly important because many provisions from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA, people often call it they're set to expire at the end of 2025. So this new legislation, it aims to extend some of those, but it also introduces entirely new priorities that could really impact how philanthropy works in this country. The whole thing is moving through something called
$1 billion in assets. The House wants a 10% tax rate.
10%.
Yeah, that's a staggering 619% increase over current law. It's clearly a move to get substantially more revenue from the wealthiest foundations.
And our sources, like the Council on Foundations, they're...
Is everybody hearing that? Okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. The point I'm trying to emphasize that is really powerful and unique about NotebookLM, and here's the use case I like to think about is you have a community of people that are going to be impacted by uh, legislation or funding priorities or some sort of thing that it's important that the community understands. So you could do work to bring legislation or that framework into this um, platform, and then create the audio overview, download it, and share it with people as something to listen to as an explainer of something complex. So the ability to take complex information in a closed universe that doesn't go find additional information that might cause it to hallucinate or overstate or do or produce something that's not accurate, um, and then turn it into something that is digestible. The other tools in here, like this was a data table. I clicked on it just as we were starting our call, and so it actually summarized the source into a data table to communicate the impacts on philanthropy based on the Big Beautiful Bill. So, just another example of what's unique about Notebook LM is you can single click uh, into creating tools that are useful based on a limited universe of source information. Questions, comments? Everybody's good so far? Okay. I know some people like to come to this as a webinar. Some people want to interact, so we'll treat it as webinar at this stage.
I have a question, Ryan.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so could you use confidential sources of information in your notebook LM and sort of trust that they'll stay here?
Yeah, I mean the claim of Google is that inside your Notebook LM subscription, it doesn't train Gemini. It's not even using Gemini, uh, and so it's only your information. So it's confidential, and that's basically the value proposition they're putting out there for Notebook LM is you can trust Notebook LM to only look or to not train its models, and it's confidential. So uh, it doesn't. I would say in this chat interface, it stays confidential, but in the chat interface, it doesn't have as much capacity as Claude, right? So if you were to say, I have a concept or a plan or a financial report or whatever it is, and you put it into your Claude subscription and ask it to produce analysis or a report, or uh, Claude has much more power under the engine to be able to produce a rigorous output. I think this is much more valuable in like a summarization tool. So that's where the inference and summarization difference. Uh, I just haven't seen that NotebookLM does a lot of the inference. It's more of the summarization.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So I'm gonna jump, and so that was actually, like I said, it's a more simple uh, use of NotebookLM with a single source of information to create summaries. And then I'm gonna jump into um, this one, which was, I've set it up a bit just because it takes time to like load all the sources, and I didn't want to force you all to watch me go find files and load them in. And so this is a project that where I was trying to just demonstrate this is, it's all real information, real organizations, uh, but it's not a real project where there's like funding decisions happening. So what I did here is Pohlad Family Foundation which is a well-known family foundation in the Twin Cities metro area. Uh, what I did is pull in their grant priorities, their history of funding, and then also inputted the proposals of five housing related organizations, but all do different things. So they provide housing, or they're advocacy organizations, or it may be rental versus ownership. And so I pulled in uh, uh, proposals from each of those organizations, and then the financial summaries of those organizations. And then what I'm trying to do is use this as a tool to understand, you know, go through a sort of interactive closed universe review process. So rather than like inputting this all into Claude or ChatGPT and worrying about whether it's going to hallucinate or overstate based on what it's finding on the web, I know I can control the information. So the that and then these sources, you can see these check boxes here. If I just wanted to focus on one of these organizations, so like United Renters for Justice, and I wanted to click out of some of these other things, um, I can zero in uh, on just that organization and hit refresh on this. And then it'll just start focusing whatever context. So it's gonna dive into this and only pull from the sources that I've checked, and give it this little extra prompt so it can go find that information. So we'll see what it actually kicks out. But uh, the other thing I'll note here on settings is you can give it, tell it to produce longer or shorter outputs. You can start to customize, what you want it to feel like. I need this. So you can see here, I gave it some direction, and then it really just did a summary of what is in these documents for United Renters for Justice. So again, broken record here, but it's using a closed loop universe of information to analyze the work of United Renters for Justice alongside the guidelines of the funder and then some financial analysis or financial report. So it's pulling just that information. And then I can take this and I can rerun some of these tools. And I'll just show you an example of what they look like. So this is the data table, which, oh yeah, you saw one of these earlier. So it's pulling in, this is when I did all 5 organizations. So if you're actually doing, you're sort of going through the trade-off exercise of like, okay, I only have $100,000 to grant. I have 5 organizations to consider. I'd rather commit to 2 at larger amounts. This will help you to sort of at a glance in some ways, look at, what are they doing? What are they focused on? What's their scope? And does that quickly align with what I'm doing? So if you didn't, and I'm never advocating for like, don't actually read proposals and don't actually stop and think about it. But treat this like this could be first blush of, I'm going to put it into a summary table and say, okay, based on that, I want to start with United Renters for Justice and dive into it a bit more and see if that, is the sort of leading candidate for what I'm trying to accomplish. Jumping back out of here, see if all these pop up. I mean, some of these are funny flashcards, but this is the intro to NotebookLM. You can just see what it does. Let's see if I can. So uh, it produced 70 cards based on the content. I'm just going to go all the way back to the beginning. So if you're doing, this is another sort of explainer or even to yeah, sort of walk yourself or others through what are we talking about? What are the questions we have? I mean, it's just a different way of looking at the information. It's asking lots of questions. And then it's actually has this little answer button here. So it's sort of an interesting way to like look at information. If you're actually like trying to learn a topic or teach people a topic, you could use this tool to produce these flashcards in a few minutes. Let me go back, see what the other ones are. I already did the recording. This actually produces a video, so let's see if I can expand it here. There we go. So this took the information and produced a 2-minute and 15-second video, which I actually haven't watched yet. So I'll take.
So what if the money that fuels social change actually comes with a playbook? We're going to look at how one major foundation decides exactly where millions of dollars go. We're getting a peek inside their playbook to see how this world really works. First up, the funder. Our example is the Polad Family Foundation in Minneapolis. And they're not just a philanthropic ATM, they're strategic architects of social change. Their vision connects 2 huge issues, housing stability and racial justice. They see them as intertwined. And they have clear criteria. This is the playbook that determines who gets the funding.
Okay, so who are the players navigating these rules? Let's meet the nonprofits on the ground. First up, Housing in Action. Think of them as the builder, creating actual homes.
Then you've got United Renters for Justice, the organizer. They're all about building tenant power. And the Housing Justice Center is the legal advocate, using the courts to fight bad laws. Homeline, they're like the legal first responder with a free hotline for renters in crisis. And finally, Hearth Connection, the coordinator. They cut through the red tape to house people. Okay, this is where it gets good. How do these groups actually fit the playbook? So remember that first rule? They want to see BIPOC leadership in these organizations. And check this out. HJC highlights their leader's own experience with housing instability as her motivation. Next up, the foundation wants solutions designed by people who've actually lived the problem.
And United Renters perfectly shows this. They were literally founded by and for renters.
And finally, the playbook wants programs that are tailored to specific communities. Homeline totally nails this, expanding their hotline coverage into Spanish and Somali. It's a perfect fit.
So what does this whole back and forth, this dance, really tell us about social change?
Well, the scale here is just massive. We're talking over $60 million from just one foundation. So yeah, it's a sophisticated dance. Funders set the stage and nonprofits perform. The big takeaway here, this isn't just about giving money. It's about shaping it.
All right, wow. So I know it's sort of a little bit of a funny video, but try to think about it like if you were this is where like how we work is changing because the thing we used to have to do to be able to put together an explainer video like that is hire real people, put together graphics, take many months probably just to get to like a basic video. So, and legitimately, sometimes, and I don't know everybody's role in their organizations, but if you're prepping for a board meeting or a staff meeting, and you're like, I have to figure out how to explain this concept in the most basic terms, you could use a tool like this, give it the context you want to give it, direct it in the prompting and outputs that you get in this sort of center box, and then produce an explainer video like this. And it is maybe just like the first intro, but I've been in a lot of board meetings, a lot of staff meetings where it's like somebody's got their head around a really complex thing, and then not everybody else is there. And so this is just one of the tools where it's like, okay, what if we tried like explaining something more complex using a tool like this? So again, just another way we've looked at the data table, we've looked at that video. This is where'd they go? A essentially a slide deck it produced, and I think at the outset of this, you can select a style. So it can be this one is architectural. So it produces the details of all the context that you've given it again and puts it into a slide deck explainer of what the pull-ad investment strategy seems to be, the sort of continuum of housing work that these organizations do, what the potential investments are into each of those organizations. Again, it's another way to, especially, in this use case, it's very much we have money to give away, we have proposals where a certain amount is being requested, and we have to decide, how we're going to give it. It's another way to look at the information. And I've found over time, like this stuff a year ago, uh, had lots of errors on design, spelling, accuracy to the data points, but it's come a long way, and you still have to check the data points, but I think it does a much better job of being accurate to what the information is and not having weird design issues or typos. So I'm just kind of clicking through so you can see the full run. And I think you can just start it here. Let's see, we saw that, or did we look at this yet? Oh, yeah, this is just a single graphic. So another sort of infographic to help explain what it is. Flashcards we looked at. This is the mind map. This one I haven't used much, but I'm sure if you're, again, sort of laying out something complex where there's multiple stakeholders involved, and you want to try and get your head around what those stakeholders are doing, what they're addressing, this is a tool where it can sort of instantly help you understand like how things are connected to each other, um, and sort of help you explore that pathway. Flashcards, okay. And then there's just like a basic briefing doc. So if you wanted to, um, it'll take all of this information and produce a fairly detailed executive summary of what information is in there. So this is sort of and they have this easy, copy it. You can bring it over to your um, Google workspace and work on it, edit it, update it. So I'm gonna stop there, and then I want to. I'm always asking for questions, but I would love if nobody comes off mute to ask for something or give me an idea. I'll work down another path. But is there somebody who wants to try something out in real time that would be willing to come off mute and give it a go?
Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can.
Okay, well, I'm not sure if this qualifies, but I thought I'll try my luck. Um, I'm looking for data analyst communities in France, in Paris, where I'm now, and trying to have an idea of how this community is structured, what are the gatherings, the networking opportunities, and chances to talk to people who are in this field, because I'm into, I guess, changing fields. I'm in transition, professional transition from research analyst. So, yeah, I thought I'll try my luck at this question.
Well, let's try it out. So I'm going to do it in fast search. So you can do fast or deep research here. Deep research, the reason I'm hesitating to click it is because it could be 9 minutes of processing. And so we're going to just try the fast research and see what it produces for us, which will give us sources to include here. And I have no idea about the data research community in France. So we'll see what it surfaces for us. There's big data and AI in Paris. And are you specifically what kind of more on the impact side or just general sort of?
Just general, because
Okay,
I'm trying to see clearly, because like I said, I'm into career transition. So it is precisely to help me clear out. So I don't have a specific, I haven't narrowed down yet. And this clarity is what I'm looking for in trying to network.
sure. Well, you can see here, I didn't sort of validate any of the that it pulled in for the web or from the web, but it pulled in about 10 websites based on trying to find gatherings of data-oriented people. And so
Okay.
now it's trying to pull in those sources, which will take a second to process. There we go. And then it's going to automatically load this basic description. And then I would ask, what do you, so you're probably trying to figure out who to connect with, or is there a certain, actually, let me
Yeah.
ask you, like, what type of people do you want to connect with first?
Data analysts, so they can tell me about the day-to-day work.
Yeah. Okay. Just watch it work here for a second. But now it's going to go back into all the sources and see where there's an opportunity to connect directly with data analysts so you can learn about the profession.
Okay.
And then we're going to it's sort of giving, there's a Francophone Slack. Okay. I mean, some of this work where this is, I think, it's a good exercise just because if if I were asking this question as a first question, what I would probably do before I'd get it into like the closed universe of NotebookLM is I would actually use Claude or ChatGPT or
Okay.
Gemini and go source more information and then load it into NotebookLM if I wanted to then say, okay, these are the only sources I want to focus on because I could endlessly go down
Okay.
the rabbit trail. But then,
Okay.
I think it's, if you wanted to, I mean, I really like this data table look. So what it's going to do is take all of these sources and then give you a really nice summary of what they do, how to connect into them, maybe even their URLs that you can click into, and it's downloadable, printable, and you can take it and use it as a guide.
So what you're saying brings a question to my mind because you're saying that you would try first Claude or ChatGPT before going into NotebookLM. So this means that there is an advantage to trying first those open sources before going down to NotebookLM.
I think I would say that it's novel for all of us to understand which thing does the best thing first.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I would always, like, I've been playing around with this stuff for a couple of years, and I'm still testing, like, does this tool produce the best first blush of information? And then deciding what form I want that information to take,
Okay.
and including the output or form I needed to use it. So if it needs to be a turned into a nicely designed deck, like I could take this information and that I've started in Claude, organized in NotebookLM in a closed universe, and then copied and pulled it over to Lovable, which is a vibe coding design platform, and asked it to turn it into a dynamic website, or like you could turn this into like a data analyst networking website in about 5 minutes by just taking this information, putting it into Lovable, and telling it to create a website for people in France focused on data analysts and helping them to network. I mean, that's what, so I'm starting to do sessions on vibe coding. I call it Good Vibes with Ryan, where we actually take, and if you want to, I can just show you exactly how that works. You take this information, we'll jump into Lovable, and within, and this is a tool, sorry, we're now getting beyond NotebookLM, but um, that's designed to create apps, websites, presentations, all based on content you give it within minutes. And then you can publish it. So if you wanted to publish a new website on a new organization starting, this is where I'd probably send you to create the website, do the stream of consciousness on the purpose, the vibe, the or branding you want to have, the workflows you need to have included. And so that's what it's doing right now, and it'll probably take a few minutes, but I'll let it process. But that's what so this is one I've been working on called Grant Hero AI, and I vibe coded the whole process because I've spent a lot of time in fundraising. But it's a grant management tool that is dynamic, and you can build integrations in it in a heartbeat. So just sort of bridging, if you're talking about process from getting source information from an LLM like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, non-promotional, uh, and uh, and then you want to organize it in a closed universe, which is when you jump to NotebookLM, and you can always jump back to the project, right? So this is the benefit of NotebookLM is you can jump back into these really nicely. And then you want to turn this into something that maybe is beyond what this can produce. You jump to tools like Lovable, or you could try and jump back into Claude. It has development tools. But this is where, to the point of deciding on tools, what we teach in a lot of our AI sessions is start with methodology and process before you start buying tools. Because if you start buying tools, you'll start spending a lot of money and you'll be all over the place. But it's really I think what we'll learn in our AI use as we mature in it is you do need to take, whether it's however it works for your brain, do the sort of stream of consciousness, workflow development, process thinking on what do I want to accomplish? What is the goal of the thing I'm working on? What information do I need? Um, who are the audiences? It's a little bit like, when you go meet with a creative agency, they're going to ask you, what are your audiences? What are you trying to accomplish? It's that sort of process. Um, and then it helps you to decide which tools to use to do that. And I don't think, well, I mean, there's potential where the larger LLMs figure out how to take more of the market share of that work. But right now, I tend to move through tools um, to accomplish the thing I need to accomplish, which is, bringing ideas from inception to living out in the world and functioning. The Compleer, as an example, this platform is all based on building doing data analytics for philanthropy. So if you wanted to uh, import a bunch of information and have it do detailed analysis on um, that's evidence-based, that's what this is designed to do. Um, so you get my point. I'm sort of jumping on a NotebookLM, but NotebookLM is a great tool, but it won't do everything for you. The use case of it is it's a closed universe. You get to determine the sources. You can turn them on and off over and over again. You can regenerate outputs to help you understand what's in up to 300 sources at once. And then you can turn it into outputs that are useful in the context in which you're working.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right. We still have about 15 minutes left. So, anybody else want to try out their idea? All right.
I have an idea, Ryan.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
Different. It's completely different from this. Uh, so I work as like an analyst in biotech, and announcement from a biotech company just came out today, and I'd love to like be able to summarize all of the kind of feels on the internet about that announcement.
Can you share more details so I can
Yeah, the company's called Sarepta, Sarepta.
sorry, say it again.
Sarepta.
And what's the general context of the announcement?
They released early clinical data.
Let's see what it finds. And so it's obviously very complex information. And so you're trying to understand, does this look, can you see this on the screen here? It's pretty small.
Yep, that all looks right.
Okay. So it's importing 10 sources that must have reported on it. And so we'll pull it in and then we'll try and interact with it a bit. And do you want to go down a thread of asking a few questions before we turn it into an output?
I mean, I guess the questions I have are like, what results were reported and what are the strategic implications of those results?
And the reason you want to do some of this prompting is because the outputs here will take into account the source information plus what it
Okay.
says about your questions. So That's why you want to go through like, okay, what do I actually want from this information first? I mean, you could just start clicking on these things, but it's not going to take into account any of your thinking. And this
Makes
is
sense.
where you may hear the phrase human in the loop or expert in the loop. So if you're an expert in this field and you're like, okay, I haven't read everything, but here are the questions I know I have, which is
Yeah.
what are the results? What are the implications? What does this mean for policy or philanthropy or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Um, it helps to bring context in before you start hitting these buttons. Any other questions you want to ask before we go?
When will the next clinical data readouts be released? It's that bottom one if you want to click it.
Oh, right there. Okay.
Also, for clarity, I work for a nonprofit patient advocacy organization, so I'm not just like some banker who's crashed your call.
Here, let's just add that.
Oh, I should tell it that.
Sometimes it'll I mean, because you'll use this word advocacy, it'll kind of
Yeah,
bring in probably some policy-oriented perspective on it that it might not have otherwise. Um,
good to know.
yeah, so the that's a I'm yeah, glad I did that. Just because anytime you're using any sort of LLM oriented tool, you always want to give the tool a role. So if you want it to represent what you're doing, you would say, I am, or you are a nonprofit advocacy professional. And so it starts to think like you might think, or think like how you want it to think. Or you could say, like maybe you're the advocacy person, but you need a finance perspective. You can say, you are a finance expert on the issue, on this issue, and I want your perspective from a finance perspective. So then, we got a bit of context. I'm going to first just start with, um, so we can click, briefing doc, and it's going to produce a probably 3 or 4 page brief on everything it pulled from here and the prompts we produced. And we can see if and I can share this stuff with you after the fact too, Amanda. Um, I'll just hit produce the audio, uh, and then let's do a data table. Slide deck. So this will produce a number of outputs that will summarize the information and hopefully be able to address your questions at a starting point. And you can always dive in deeper to more of what was released. Here's the briefing doc, which was giving some critical takeaways right away. And you're the pro, so you know what this all means, but
Yeah, it all makes sense. Yep.
yeah. And now I'm going to be curious to read it afterwards, but
Is the briefing doc under reports? Sorry, I missed
yeah, it was under reports, and then you just select. There's quite a few options here. If you wanted to give it some customization, create a study guide. So actually, I've done that before too on somebody who's an expert in a field, uh, who is thinking about, how do I educate people on these things?
Yeah.
Normally, you'd probably hire like a curriculum development partner, and they would walk through a really detailed, rigorous process. You could start with, okay, how do I turn everything I've done over 50 years of my career into a teaching framework? This might be one way to start with it. Yeah, so you can see all the options here, and I think there is more customization. Um, Here's the data table, which we can expand, which didn't share much in the data table, but key findings on the two main things it looks like. Um, and then it's still working on the slide deck, but Uh, any Amanda, next questions or path any further you want to go?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it designs. So like part of my job is to represent this information to like executives who need to understand it, but also part of it is how do we communicate it to a patient population? And those are
Mm,
obviously two different
yeah, for
levels
sure.
of understanding and like audiences. How could
Yeah.
I, without like building a whole chat focused on one and then resetting
Yeah.
and building a whole chat based on the other, like is that what you would do?
Well, you could, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to really do it for two different audiences, I would probably open or create two different notebooks. So I
Yeah.
would, make
Okay.
this one like I can't remember, you said it's the
Yeah.
patient population.
Okay. That's helpful.
And then, if you jump back over here and you wanted to sort of like start from the same starting point, you can just find the same sources ideally. Um, and then go down the path you want to go down.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I did it by myself first, and then I figured I would ask the professional to do it and see what the
Yeah.
difference is. So that was super helpful.
Yeah, I think especially when you get very different audiences, it starts to LLMs start to like they can't delineate as well as maybe you might want them to, if like just to
Makes
keep
sense.
keep it completely
Like
separate.
messaging. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
and the other option is like you do want to see it side by side. Like how would I, what does this mean for this
Yeah.
population as compared to this in a sort of side by side comparison? Like you could start doing that chat here, which would then say, okay, we can now produce a table that talks about the patient perspective and the doctor's perspective or something.
Makes sense. Can you direct it and say, please focus the data table on like the following categories? Or is it just going to make a data
Yeah.
table like based on, okay, I see.
Yeah. So focus this. Sorry, what did you say?
I think, like you said, maybe on perspectives from a
All right.
physician versus a patient versus a business person, maybe.
Let's see. Yeah. So it's going to do its best to accomplish that
Yep.
task. Okay. Well, we're getting down to our last few minutes here. Any other questions before we wrap this up? I'll do a couple little commercials. Um, so like I said, there's a few things I do. One is this kind of stuff that almost every week I have a demonstration of a tool, that's sort of agnostic to any businesses I run, and then I do a weekly demo of Compleer, which is usually on Fridays, and you'll see those come back in April. Um, and then the Brain Studio is one where I'm really excited to actually work directly with people. So these are platforms I've developed with people. This one's focused on special ed assistance to teachers. This one's like a household management tool. It's all sort of impact focused. So if you're interested in actually doing some building of tools for your purposes, the era we're in right now is you can actually build management tools for your scope of work that are completely customized to your work. And it's hard to understand how that happens. But believe me, like if you manage any sort of process where every software you've ever worked with sucks, uh, we have the capacity to build what you want just for you and have it integrated to the systems you want to. Uh, I also want to just like plug a few things. Like I would love to see a few people go try out this prioritization tool I built. All you have to do is enter your priorities. You can use your voice, upload something, paste it, and go through the exercise and see if it's helpful to you. This is based on a methodology a mentor of mine taught me a long time ago. And so it's one fun thing I worked on. But just putting that out there. And then, I'll just show this as our sort of final review, what we just prompted. It produced within a few minutes a patient perspective statement for each of these, what would you call them? Therapy candidates. And then medical perspective, business perspective, and then a safety and tolerability profile. So this, I would hope, would be something you could work with, Amanda, and then turn it into whatever communication tool you need.
Very cool. Thank you.
All right. Well, I will give you maybe a minute back of your time. Oh, and my email is, as people are bailing, put it in the chat. And feel free to email me there if you have questions, want to work on something together, if I can support your work all day, every day. I'm working with Impact Pros, so would love to be useful to you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon or evening, wherever you're at.